clean energy for EU islands, Europe's ambitious islands and their energy transition. Now, before we begin, you should see a poll that should appear on your screen in a bit. Please let us know where you're coming from, where you're connecting from, and the sector and your sectors, and industry you belong to. You could go right ahead. I'm seeing a lot of people from all over the world: Guadeloupe, Portugal, Paris, St. Lucia, Washington. Ooh, I'm seeing some Trinis. Lovely. Oh my gosh, a lot of people today. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a really great session ahead. I'm so excited to be able to hear from these amazing panelists. Okay, US Virgin Islands, Newfoundland, Jamaica, lovely. Okay, the results should be in. Oh, wow. We have a lot of people from Europe today supporting the session. Love that. About 34% of you are from the Caribbean, North America. Okay, a lovely Pacific Island represent. We have a lot of you all from the private industries and a nice party representation from NGOs. Super, super glad to hear that. Okay, a very diverse group of industries. Okay, awesome. So I would just like to invite you to use the chat function to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourselves, leave your LinkedIn. This session, okay, so what's happening is the European Union has been pioneering ways of transitioning the island communities to clean energy since 2019 and has ambitious goals of reaching net zero carbon emissions by 2015 on the back of strong renewable energy policies across the rest of the bloc. Basically, how does this affect EU islands? What can the mainland learn from island communities, and how has this project developed? We can find out all this and more in this session today. So what I'd like to do is just basically hand you over to our great moderator today, Hans Brezit, and he'll take over from me. Okay, hi Hans. Everybody enjoy the rest of your session.
Thank you, Abia. As your moderator, it's my pleasure, of course, to welcome you all for this session on islands as inspiring lighthouses for the energy transition. My name is Hans Brezit. I live on the island of Texel in the Netherlands, on top of Amsterdam. I am an emeritus professor of TU Delft and now affiliated with the University of Aalborg in Denmark, not far from Samsø. I'm also the Dutch regional partner of the Cleaner Energy for EU Islands facility of the European Commission. In this 1 hour session, we have 4 contributions from distinguished speakers from different angles that I really look forward to. You know, in one of the EU Islands projects I'm involved in, we have decided to call the sustainable innovation created and demonstrated by islands Spark innovation. Due to their isolation, their ambition to be self-sustaining, and their do-it-yourself capability, islands, we think, create unique energy transitions like sparks, but they have a too small market to fully profit themselves from it. That's why on the mainland, we can profit from these sparks. Anyway, without further ado, let's go to our keynote speaker, Mr. Eero Ailio, who is an advisor on the energy transition and local governance for the European Commission. His background is Finland, where they told me you have more than 1,000 islands. So who can we have better from Brussels than you, sir? My pleasure. I would say the floor is yours.
Thank you, Han, and good morning, afternoon, and evening, whatever it is, in some of those beautiful places that I see you are joining this session from. Well, like Han, you said, I'm indeed a northern guy from Finland, and for me, actually, it was the Helsinki archipelago, that was the reference for island life. As soon as I could, paddle by kayak or ski over the ice to those islands at the age of around 6 years old or whatever. And interestingly, this year August, I went kayaking around a very well-known Italian island, and the outside temperature was approaching 50 degrees Celsius at that moment. And I must say, it did feel different. So this kind of like a microscale experience, it reminded me of the need to keep my mind and my eyes and ears open when discussing climate and energy challenges on islands in Europe, let alone in the world. So I'll give a try to that. But anyway, before that, so warm thanks indeed to Island Innovation for this opportunity to talk about European Commission activities in this very international setting. And the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative, it kicked off about 6 years ago. And it's a product of this kind of a strong culture of coupling EU legislation with voluntary initiatives that involve local and regional authorities in energy transition and climate work. So by now, I think we heard in the beginning that EU has a climate neutrality by 2050 target. It is actually in law, and we have very ambitious target for renewable energy, 42%, 42.5% by 2030, and also energy efficiency, and so on. All of this is under the so-called European Green Deal strategy. And in this context, it's obvious that we need to support the local communities, because without success at the local level, so these kinds of targets will hardly be ever achieved. So the EU Island Initiative has grown to a very compact but very vibrant community. So we've got to today approximately 80 islands on board, and they're working hard to go green, and they are supported on that by a dedicated secretariat. The initiative assists islands in planning and transitioning to sort of and future-proofing their economies, but also it does more. It's a test bed for instance, distributed energy systems, some of them off-grid, and this actually adds also nowadays to Europe's energy security objectives. So, and I mean, you will know Vladimir Putin's unprovoked and brutal invasion of Ukraine put energy, and now, sorry, turn off my phone. Sorry about that interruption. So indeed, Russia's invasion of Ukraine put energy security and strategic autonomy on par with the climate and energy transition priorities in Europe. And it was probably a bit unexpected that this fossil energy crisis that hit the world, and many islands who depend on fossil fuels, this actually accelerated the clean energy transition in the European Union. And this is actually pretty logical because, you know, we are a fossil energy importing region. So therefore, you know, for Europe, we can only win by developing domestic renewable energy production that is cleaner and obviously much more difficult to weaponize than oil or gas. So for this reason, the EU has taken unprecedented measures last year to remove barriers from renewable energy deployment and energy efficiency and many related measures. So these, what they do is they accelerate permitting. We pre-allocate areas for renewable energy deployment on land and on islands. We make new financing tools like energy purchase agreements accessible for small communities and consumers. We're speeding up energy storage, renovations, alternative fuel production, and so on. And islands are there, actually, they will be benefiting from these steps. And at the same time, we have extended the mandate of the island secretariat so that it can help the island communities in their transition for the next 4 years at least. And one key point we've learned from islands under the initiative is that they require comprehensive help in different areas. So this means guidance on the legal, the technical, the economic, the financial, and also social kind. And of course, in varying combinations. For this reason, what we're doing is we're going to ramp up the technical assistance with a network of over 100 experts. And these people will not focus only on the power sector, but also on things like transportation, heating and cooling, and even some specific industries on islands. We're also expanding a platform where good practices and examples of clean energy projects on islands can be shared. And this platform will not just showcase these success stories, but also connect with other relevant initiatives and organizations. And I think like the one we are now here participating in. It's also important to note that mainland municipalities actually can learn a great deal from their island counterparts. For instance, on topics like isolated energy systems and off-grid solutions. And sort of internally, to make this cross-fertilization between the mainland and the islands easier, practically, we are managing initiatives for islands and mainland cities by the same team at the Commission's Energy Department. Now, on top of these kinds of more, how should I say, like technical work, we must, of course, keep the cause of islands on a, high on the political agenda. After all, many of the cities on the main, actually more than the cities on the mainland, the island communities often depend on central governments for budget and other key resources and decisions. And for this reason, the EU is organizing, among other things, these kinds of annual island forums, and they serve as a gathering for island stakeholders to meet and discuss the achievements and also the problems they are facing, and drawing inspiration from each other. Now then, just this year in May, the Commission kicked off the 30 for 2030 challenge. And what is this? Well, it actually involves offering comprehensive support and showcasing to 30 islands on their journey to 100%, to sourcing 100% of their energy from renewable energy sources by 2030. So it's like 100 renewable islands by 2030. And what we want to do here is we want to show everyone that there are real alternatives to fossil fuels on islands, and that they actually bring a lot of benefits to the communities, to the business, the environment, and overall to the quality of life. And Telos in Greece or Samsø in Denmark, like you mentioned, Han, so they've already demonstrated that this can be done. And I know there are more examples elsewhere. Now, it's not just those 30 islands that should benefit from this support. What we also want to do is we are providing resources to the others, a bit like a technology solution menu. We get financing options, training on island-specific topics, and there's also a project marketplace. And these can replicate the successful transition paths of the front-runner islands, but actually with low risk. So now a couple of words about the barriers to doing all of this. Well, European islands have told us that they can only make real progress if there are the right kind of rules and regulations in place. And that's why the recent EU legislation, some of it is actually being modified as we speak. So that legislation is adapted to make it easier to set up things like local energy communities, to deploy renewable energy, share energy between neighbors, and so on. We're also looking into grid capacity, which is often a big challenge on islands. So we made some changes to EU legislation on local grid management. And on top of that, now the EU Island Secretariat, so they are carrying out a study on best practices for connecting renewable energy sources and managing energy systems where in places where generation is non-synchronized and the islands are not interconnected. And by the way, this work actually will cover a number of islands also in the Caribbean, Indian Ocean, and Polynesia. So it's not just here. We've learned also that involving everyone is crucial in this. We need all levels of government and different stakeholders like ministries, regulators, grid operators, project developers, and obviously the island communities to work together to make these transition plans. Now, last point here, the EU Islands Initiative is flanked by other initiatives and financial support, such as the upcoming European Energy Communities Facility or the Circular Cities and Regions Initiative. These ones, what they do is they give capacity building, financial, and other kind of support to develop business plans for implementing sustainable energy community and circular economy projects at local level. In addition, we're working obviously with the European member states to channel sort of larger investment to islands from the European cohesion funds. Well, I mean, by now you will have noticed that I've actually ended up speaking almost exclusively about European islands today, but I must say I'm counting here on the advice of James Elmore, who should be here, I think, jumping in and out of this session, because he told me last May when we were in the island of Saaremaa in Estonia, that the challenges that islands face, so they are actually strikingly similar between Europe or between Mediterranean or Pacific or the Baltic Sea. So I'm curious to find out whether this is the reality, but it's time for me to close here, and thank you for listening, and let me hand the mic back to Johan. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Eero. Sorry, I had the difficulty unlocking my my mute. Thank you very much for this overview. And indeed, I can say from firsthand that this program CE4EU Islands is very attractive, and also that some Caribbean islands who have a European background will be participating. At least they go for the 30 islands. Like the 3 Dutch Caribbean islands. So there are some questions about this program, but I would like to take them to our discussion, if it's okay. One of them, so you can start thinking about that era, is the successful islands, they have their own advisors. And now come in some extra advisors, some consultants from EU islands. How does that match together? What's in it for the existing consultants that the islands want to keep in their jobs? So not for an answer now, but for our discussion. Then you have some thinking time. Okay. All right. Let's go back. Let's go on to the second speaker. That is Mr. Raoul Garcia Brink. Quite a Dutch name, I would say, Brink. There have been some wars between the Dutch and the people from Spain in Canary Islands. He's vice president of the Island Energy Council and Environment, Energy, Climate and Knowledge in the Council of Gran Canaria. But from his CV, you can see he's also a professor teacher at the University of Las Palmas. He has a background in philosophy and literature from the Autonomous University of Madrid. So for me, it's no wonder that there's also so much sustainable energy autonomy already on the Canarian Islands. Raoul, we are ready for your contribution.
Okay, thank you, Han. Yes, I'm a mixture between Dutch. My mother was Dutch, yes, and my father was a Canarian. So that my origins are in Amsterdam, yes. Super. And well, I'm in this moment I'm counselor of the island government in the Gran Canaria, And we also participate in the Clean Energy for EU Islands initiative, and we had also some meetings in one meeting in Gran Canaria with the Spanish partners, and well, I will try to share with you our experience in the energy transition and what we are doing now and some of our projects. And I hope that this will be interesting for you. I hope so. I will share a presentation. I hope that everyone can see it. And first of all, I come from the Canarian archipelago near Africa. We are an outermost region of the European Union, and we are approximately 1,000 kilometers away from mainland Europe, and we have 2.2 million inhabitants. And Gran Canaria, the island where I live and where I work, it is has circa approximately 1 million inhabitants, and we have 4 million tourists per year. We have photovoltaic generation, as you can see in the slide, wind generation also, and the energy system operator, Red Eléctrica Española, estimates that in 2026 we will have diesel fuel oil will continue to produce more than half of the energy consumed in our island, so that we have a very ambitious we have a future, yes, if we want to have a transition to a more sustainable energy system in our island. As you can see in this photo, you can see that most of our wind plants and our also solar plants are in the southwest of the island, yes, and as you can see in this graphic, yes, this is for a few days ago in Gran Canaria. Renewables energies do not produce a constant amount of energy. The brown graphic, yes, is the solar power, and the green graphic is wind power. So that we have problems, yes, is one of our biggest challenges, yes, is to develop a storage, new energy drivers, decentralization of production, and also changing the procedures for operating the grid digitally and also in real time. We think that islands could be an excellent laboratory for testing disruptive innovations in the field of energy and take it to the continent. And you can see here our energy consumption statistics. As you can see, we are the gas oil station of the Mid-Atlantic. 62% of our is fuel oil for bunkering, and only 31% is for domestic consumption, and most of it is for transport, and 44.8 for electricity consumption. You can see here the installed capacity. One moment. The installed capacity of renewable energies in our island. You see in blue you have the fossil energy, and in green you have the renewable installed power in our island. we have decreased the emissions of CO2 emissions. Yes, you can see here the evolution between January 2019 and July 2022. So that we are making an effort in order to have a bigger penetration of renewable energies. We have to reduce 55% the CO2 emissions in 2030, and our regional government has the target to get zero emissions by 2040, so that we have to eliminate or capture all these emissions in 10 years before the target of the European Union. This is for us a very complex problem. We have to change how we, if we want to become neutral, we have to change how we produce, how we take care of the environment, how we live, how we consume, how we travel, or how we generate and use the energy. And we do it with an eco-island vision. This is the vision of our government. And with the eco-island vision, we want to develop mitigation and adaptation policies, and also circular economy. I will show you some facts about Gran Canaria. First of all, 21, all of our municipalities have sustainable energy and climate action plans from the Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy of the European Union. We are the island coordinators. And we have a 24% of renewable energy in our island now instead. Yes, and the evolution in the last year has been very big. Yes, we had from 2017 till 2022 173 growth of renewable energies in our island. We have an explosion moment of the renewable energies in Gran Canaria. And we had 100 installations in 2019, and now we have more than 2,000 installations. Yes, and we have from 2019 till 2022, we have multiplied by 6. Yes, our installed power. Yes, in the island. Yes, we are in this moment the island with most I'm talking about self-consumption. Yes, with most solar energy in the roofs. Yes, in the Canary Islands. And the government, the island government, has in this moment 1.6 megawatts installed in the roofs of our buildings, and 2.4 megawatts under implementation in this moment. And we have invested more than 0.5 million euros in renewable energies. You can see here some of our installations. Some are small and some are bigger, like this. This is a socio-sanitary center of our government. And we give also grants to the citizens, and also to the agriculture and livestock sector. And you can see here the evolution, yes, of the solar self-consumption in Gran Canaria, compared, for example, with another big island, Tenerife. We are in the blue line, and the red line is Tenerife, so that we have the best evolution, yes, in our archipelagos. And here you can see also the wind energy evolution in the last years, and also the evolution of the electric cars in our island. So that we are doing a big effort, and this is one of our big projects. Yes, we have a pumped storage hydropower plant that is now under construction. It is a 200 megawatts power station, and we will store there this 200 megawatts. We will pump desalted water with renewable energies to some dams that we have that are constructed now in our mountains, and this is one of our biggest projects because we will this will be a great. We will have the penetration of renewable energies will be multiplied by 2. Yes, it's for us a very important project. Yes. Here you can see how it works. Yes, we dissolve the water and then we pump it to the dams that we have, and we will have a hydroelectric central inside the mountain. Yes, there's no visual impact.
One more Canarian minute. One more. One minute. Is that okay for you?
Okay, we have also community energy projects, and we have also open cycle saltwater hydropumping projects, deep geothermal projects, green hydrogen production for waste collection vehicles, and also energy community projects. We are waiting for next generation funding. We are also developing projects of agrivoltaic energy efficiency also, and we are also in a regulatory sandbox call, so that we are working very hard. We think that we can be an ideal laboratory, yes, of the energy transition in an isolated context, so that we are focusing our projects in renewables, smart grids, energy communities, distributed energy resources, green hydrogen, storage and flexibility, mobility, and decarbonization. So thank you for your attention. And if you want to ask me something, I will do it with great pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, Raul. That was a really convincing story of your island. And one of the questions that popped up in the audience is, if you are so far ahead, who can inspire you? Could you give a brief answer? Who could inspire you on your roadmap? Because if you are leading the way, it seems nobody can be your benchmark or your example. Can you tell us something about that very briefly?
Well, I think that we are at the avant-garde, yes, of the energy transition, because all the good practices that we share are of little islands. We have very good practices. For example, in the island of El Hierro, they have the Corona del Viento. This is also a very, but it is an island with 7,000 or 8,000 inhabitants. The problem, the great challenge for us, is that we have approximately 1 million inhabitants, and we have 4 million visitors every year, tourists. So that the carbon footprint of that we have is very, very big, and so that we think that there are no similar examples. The examples that normally that I see are more little islands, yes, but islands like ours, I think that there are not so many.
Okay.
In order to have benchmarking, yes, it's my opinion.
Oh,
I don't know.
maybe in the discussion we can find the start of a solution. Yeah. Well, thank you again very much. Very interesting. And now we go to a neighboring country of Spain. We go to Mr. Johnny dos Santos from the Smart Grids and Mobility Lab in the University of the Algarve in Faro, where he is a researcher. We are very curious, Johnny, what you will bring. You are not living on an island, but we know all that Portugal has a lot of islands. And near Faro, there are some very small islands, I know by experience. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anne. So hello everyone. Firstly, I would like to congratulate the Virtual Island Summit for this 5th anniversary. My name is Johnny Bussan, and I live in Kulatra Island, and I'm here today to bring you our story. So Kulatra is located in the southernmost region of the mainland Portugal, that is Algarve, and it is one of the 5 barrier islands that compose Ria Formosa Natural Park. Kulatra has a total area of 4.3 square kilometers, so it is a really small island, and it has 946 inhabitants divided by 3 settlements. Those settlements are the Farol, Angars, and the main settlement that is Kulatra, which is the focus of our transition agenda, which is a fisherman community with 80% of all the island population. Our clean energy transition agenda was built on, based on 5 pillars, that is electricity generation, storage and distribution, house climatization and building efficiency, transport on, to and from the island, water supply and treatment, and the last one is waste management and valorization. We start our path to self-sufficiency in 2019 when Kulatra was selected by the Clean Energy for European Islands as one of the 6 pilot islands. In less than 4 years, we made some important achievements in those several pillars, like for example, in electricity generation, storage and distribution, we assure 27% of the electricity needs during the daylight, only by renewable energy source, namely the photovoltaics. In the housing climatization and building efficiency pilot, we create an environmental and social responsibility fund in order to fight the energy poverty of the island. In the transport on, to and from the island, we introduced several home support electrical vehicles, as well as an electric boat only dedicated to oyster farming. In water supply and treatment, we are developing a non-intrusive desalination module to replicate in the island and, of course, outside. And in waste and management valorization, we acquire an oyster shell crushing machine in order to leverage our circular economy. Last year, we also received the sustainable label in water and energy by SMILO, the Small Island Organization, and we were recently recognized with an award as a national example in the green energy transition. So our vision to reach the energy sufficiency by 2030 is creating a decentralized energy market in Kulatra, where the energy is produced exclusively from renewable source, scaled to supply the entire community. and in case of surplus of energy production, use it for parallel processes such as water desalination and charging our electric vehicles. All the revenues from this renewable energy production will be reinvested on the community, of course, either to increase the capacity of energy production or to fight the energy poverty in the island. So regarding this challenge to create the decentralized energy market, we are developing a renewable energy community. We are developing a renewable energy community pilot project in partnership with the National Regulatory Entity for Energy Service and the distribution system operator RENS. In this pilot project, we test new energy sharing models in a community way, of course, which allow us to optimize the energy self-consumption ratio when the energy self-sufficiency of the island is increasing. It's also important to say that the outputs of this project, of this pilot project, will contribute for the reformulation of the national energy sharing laws. And just to conclude, I would like to say that this is only possible to reach due to one big important thing, that is the involvement of all the community since the beginning, because they were the ones, I'm included too, who outlined their own needs in the transition agenda, and that is the key to Culatra success now for nowadays. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's really an amazing story, and for me, totally unexpected. I've been various times in Portugal and on the islands, but this is really very impressive. And of course, your university is actively involved, otherwise it wouldn't happen. But tell me one thing, very briefly, what is your own special contribution in this project? You are a PhD in this project, and what has been your biggest surprise so far? What happened that you didn't expect at all on the island?
Yeah, my contribution, I live in Culatra. I'm one of inhabitants. I'm electrical engineering. I'm studying the electrical engineering, and when we started 2019, it was like, so my university as a project to transform my community in a sustainable community. And I just remember I was thinking, whoa, it will be very difficult because we are in a natural park. We have many constraints. We cannot build in Culatra. So, but all the people, all the community start to enter on the project, and one by one, and now everyone is involved in some of the communities involved in water processes, another one in energy processes, and It's
Sounds
really,
Sounds
really
wonderful, and probably you are too modest. Unfortunately, we have to move. We would have loved to hear more from you, but I'm sure that we can get more information also via the chat, etc. Thank you so much again, Johnny. And then we move to the last but not the least speaker, Mrs. Abigail Kutayar. She is an advisor of the Minister of Energy and Climate Change of the government of Malta. She has a very colorful background, being a mechanical engineer and also an integrated product designer by profession. And she set up lots of different businesses. It's my pleasure, Abigail, to give you the floor about what is happening on Malta. At least if you are there.
Yes, yes. Hi, Han. Can you hear me?
Yeah, wonderful.
Good. So thank you. Good morning, afternoon, or good evening to everyone. And thank you for inviting Malta to be part of this panel. As you are well aware, obviously, Malta is an island, an independent island state within the European Union. There are much more islands, but it is the smallest island which is not interlinked with any other country. We only have one link towards mainland Europe, and that is not linked through gas supplies, but it is linked through electricity, and basically Malta is linked with an interconnector link. In order to give a bit of an overview, though, before I start, as you rightfully introduced, yes, I'm also a mechanical engineer by profession, and I have been appointed in this role in order to enable Malta as a country, even though small as it is, but enable the energy transition towards a greener country, also aligned with the obligations and vision of Europe to become the first continent to be obviously climate neutral by 2050. Malta has undertaken that commitment, even though it's small. And at the moment, just to give a bit of an overview, the sources of energy for Malta are coming from 3 fronts. So the majority right now is from gas. We have, as Malta, we carried out the transition in 2014, 2015, and basically in 2016, we have stopped any form of contribution coming from heavy fuel oil, basically. So that reduced the overall emissions significantly by around 60% to be exact. However, obviously, we're not just satisfied with having gas supplies, but we would like to be more ambitious and cleaner, because obviously, as part of the green transition, we want to be more clean, and we want our sources to be more coming from cleaner sources. So basically, the majority, around 70%, is from gas. Then we have another 20%, which is coming from direct electricity from Europe and from the interconnector, and the rest is coming from renewables. Even though we have exceeded our national targets up to 2030, as a ministry also, we want to do much more in this regard. In fact, very recently, we have launched a strategy, basically a framework, in order to launch a national framework for offshore renewables, because even though Malta has around 500,000 residents, we are one of the most densely populated countries, not only in Europe, but within the world. So the availability of space within our island to actually carry out renewables is very limited. However, we are heavily bled, so to say, with the waters all around us. So it has been decided by the minister herself to set out this policy for offshore renewables. And right now we have the public consultation going on in order to issue the expression of interest for the first, actually it would be the first offshore project around Malta. It is going to have earmarked certain number of areas, which would be very interesting for interested investors in order to obviously give their bid in order to set up this framework. But our vision is basically based on three main pillars. Basically, we look at the main pillar, which is energy affordability. We know that all of the countries around Europe, at least, but even the world, were affected very badly. As of recent, the energy prices have been outstanding for many countries, and obviously this affected not just Europe. This actually affected all of the world. So affordability for our residents, for our citizens, and even for our investors, for us, is critical. So that is one of the main pillars which we're constantly focusing on. We have also started the other pillar, so to say, is energy security. Since we are an island state, we're well aware that one of the main threats to Malta is the security of our island. And not just the security, but also the fact that we would require, if we become in island mode, we can't really rely on neighboring states. So for us, being self-sufficient and shifting to floating, in our case, to floating renewables is key, because that means that it would enable us to become self-sufficient. In order to maybe focus a bit on this before I go on the third pillar, in order to enhance also the security of our country, basically we're going very much into the possibility of incentivizing battery storage, because we believe that battery storage, both for residential, domestic, and even for commercial entities, is critical. Because obviously we know that there could be a possibility that we obviously would need to be self-reliant. So battery storage is something which, as a country and as a ministry, we're really focusing on, and we're really incentivizing both household and also within commercial entities. We're also focusing on vehicle to grid. So the government has actually given one of the most aggressive support mechanisms for electric vehicles and hybrid, but now we're focusing mostly on electric vehicles because that is what is purely green. And we have incentives of up to around 12,000 to 13,000 euros of grants for every vehicle. So that is one of the most aggressive within Europe. And then the third pillar, which as a country we focus heavily on, is energy sustainability. And this is where mostly the schemes and support mechanisms come along. I think Malta has one of the highest support mechanisms in the case of feed-in tariffs. Feed-in tariffs of cost per kilowatt hour is very high, and the commitment is for up to 20 years. So whoever invests in an investment of photovoltaics or any other renewable energy system can get up to a feed-in tariff, a committed feed-in tariff for the course of 20 whole years. So that is very important. We are looking also within energy communities now. And we're looking at this because obviously it supports the transition towards energy poverty, and because it's also very good as a practice that the government looks at such support mechanisms to actually enable all easy and access to energy to all. We're also assessing the hydrogen possibilities. So obviously we are an island state, and it's a challenge because we're looking at green hydrogen. So in order to have enough hydrogen to access, we either have to have a pipeline to mainland Europe, or else we'll have to generate enough renewable energy to actually translate through an electrolyzer to our own plant. So that is also a challenge within itself for an island state, because obviously, as I said, we're not connected via pipeline to any other country around Europe, around the Mediterranean. Something else which we're looking at is enhancing the distribution network, because we believe that it's not just the supply side, but you also need to have a good, robust distribution network in order to ensure that both commercial entities and residential properties are actually served during critical times, and not only during critical times, but during times of need, which is mainly always, but we're really also focusing on, we don't have the demand response in Malta, but we're focusing on off-peak times. So basically, it's important that there would be obviously a supply of renewable energy, but that renewable energy in itself could actually be problematic to the grid, to the electricity grid. So that's why we're coupling it with battery storage. And we're also trying to incentivize whoever goes into such schemes and such mechanisms. So obviously we're building up we're enhancing the regulatory framework for this. We also just announced as a ministry that there's going to be a climate action authority as well, in order to because we really truly believe that climate action within everything is critical in order to enable the transition. Thanks, Han.
Wow, super. Thank you so much for being in time. And dear panel members and ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for being such a poor moderator, because we are running out of time and have no idea what to do. But unless somebody intervenes, I propose at least that we have a very short panel discussion on one subject at least. So maybe I can ask the panel members to
and we can go ahead and give you another 15 minutes.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Wrap up and have a little discussion.
Thank you so much. Well, one of my first questions that also, of course, is there in the audience is if I ask Mr. Ailio, what advice do you have for the islands? What can they do more than you already hear from them, and even more than your technical assistance and your programs are aiming at? And the other way around, the people from the islands that just have presented their progress, what wishes do you have for Mr. Ailio that Brussels could facilitate your work or accelerate it? So hopefully you can answer this question or discuss this question in the first place. What do you think, Eero? What do you expect more from the islands that they already show?
Well, thank you, Han. Huge question, but frankly, I see a lot of solutions that have been presented here by the presenters here in the same panel. So it's actually impressive. So there's no shortage of sort of innovative thinking on islands. I think that's obvious. So it's really about how to deploy these solutions in a larger scale. And there are a few things very few things I can say about that, because islands are so different to each other. But I just think that one issue which we've come across in talking to local communities, small and big, in general terms, is the engagement of the local people. And I know that many islands do this already very well. But I know also that there are sometimes issues with things like, vested interests, let's say in the fossil fuel value chain, and that can be difficult actually to overcome on islands. So what we've seen that has worked quite well is, for instance, there have been launch of these kinds of what I call sometimes local climate pacts. And the point there is to get every stakeholder on in a local community together, private and public, and academia, if there are such represented, and so on. Get them all together to do these transition plans then together, because that's the way to build this kind of engagement, local support for it. And what we noticed also quite interesting examples. This one comes from Belgium now, which is not famous for its island, so it's not that, but it might be still useful. Actually, what the local authorities did with the help of the region, so they set up a kind of a menu of extremely concrete climate energy actions for mitigation, adaptation, and also energy poverty, which everybody can do. I mean, even private individuals. I mean, it starts from really simple things like, planting trees to increase shading and reduce, heat island effects and things like that. But from there, going to renovation, of course, solar PV installation and so on. But the interesting way this was done, it was made very concrete, like a set of 15 or so actions. And then the municipalities, some of them very small. So they were, in a way, there was like a scorecard set up between those municipalities to compare the efforts, first, like where they stand today, and then what commitments they had taken in this terms. For instance, most of them were part of the Covenant of Mayors that was earlier mentioned here in the case of Gran Canaria. And so they had a plan, or they had a target, but it wasn't very concrete, something that would involve the citizens themselves. And by doing this kind of a local sort of menu, and then organizing also a follow-up on the measurement of the results, so things started moving in a totally different way. So people felt, I mean, empowered is the word, of course, we use, but it really like being part of it, and that has made a big impact. And it interested the media, by the way, which is not so bad for local politicians. And so that's one thing I would probably mention here in this case.
Could you do us a favor, Eero, and send us some of the examples so we can share them with the audience? Yeah, later on, not now.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
those practical things would be very helpful for many of us.
Yeah, I can do that afterwards. I will look for the links and provide them to you.
Wonderful. Yeah. Let's see how the islanders in the panel, how they react on this, the engagement of local people. Well, from Johnny, we've seen that you are a self-engager, so to say. That's wonderful. But let's also ask from Abigail and from Raul how you organize that, or does it pop up automatically? Can you say something about that, Abigail?
If you want to start, Raul, it's fine for me because he was going to talk. No, okay. So basically, as I was saying before, we're focusing more on energy communities now. So the projects which we're issuing, we are starting to focus on enabling energy communities in order to also reach out to the most vulnerable. However, I think, in my opinion, the most important is that the schemes and grants are given priority, and given priority in order to be accessible to all. This is something which we really focus on, to give incentives in this direction. in order to include also the people and reduce, through this, we would be reducing obviously also energy poverty, because someone who can't actually afford a solar photovoltaic system, for instance, which is a very simple example, they obviously wouldn't go for renewable energy, and they would go for conventional gas supply. And one other thing which you mentioned, Han, maybe as something which is worth mentioning to Ailio, would be that kind of Mediterranean countries are also given financing in order to interconnect with other regions. This is very, very important. Malta has spearheaded the Med9 initiative together with 8 other member states within the EU. And it's very, very important that we do not just focus on Europe, but the access to other countries, for instance, in Northern Africa. Northern Africa have lots of space. They have accessibility to land, and they also would be very interested to do projects with Europe. Let's not disregard it. Let's give funding, regional funding, as there already is, like the REPowerEU and the Cohesion Fund, in order to enhance this link, because through the interconnections with other countries, we can avoid further crises like similar to the ones which we had in the past months and years. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very valuable insight, and a very good promotion of looking further than only Europe, which we tend to do. So very much appreciated. Johnny, do you want to say something about this, about local governments? Sorry, about the cooperative roles, the role of the people, or can you say something more about how you have been organizing this?
Mm-hmm. We recently created a cooperative for sustainable development of Quadra. All the people that fund that cooperative belongs to the island. There is people that live in the island, so in that way we can engage the community, and the community starts to work for themselves. We are trying to incentivize, because we are developing a new cluster. My grandmother, my grandfathers, they are only fishermen, and now we live in a natural park. We need to preserve the environment in the natural park, so we have to live, and we start to work with our school, our kindergarten. We do massive workshop with the kids and try to engage. But of course, we are a small community. It's easy to implement those kind of behavior.
I hope you don't get too many energy academic tourists now you're so successful. Yeah, that could be the end. Could be the end of your island.
Yeah, we have a lot of tourists too in the island. That is a problem. Of course, we also develop a guide that we call the responsible tourist, who speak about our projects, what we try to achieve, and it's right. And what we are implementing, like the single-use free zone, we are trying to motivate the tourists to the people who bring the bottles, the plastic bottles, to live with them, because we are an island. We need to all the waste stays in the island, and the tourist goes, and that is a problem. So we are implementing some instruments to fight
Well,
that tourism problem.
Thank you so much. We have 2 minutes left. I would say I give the floor to our keynote speaker to give his impression of this session, notifying him that on the chat there are many very positive reactions on this session, but also a lot of questions, for instance, from Michel de Kemeter, if there is a list of best practices and business models that solve these problems, things like that. So there's a real need for all kind of information. Maybe you can, Eero, react on that, and then unfortunately we have to close this session. Eero.
Thank you, Han, and thank you indeed for the various questions. I've been trying to answer some of them here, sort of offline or online, how do we? But to the point you raised, Han, so yeah, when it comes to these business models and issues connected, so these are things that we are indeed gathering together on this platform I mentioned on the Clean Energy for EU Islands platform that we are developing further now. So this is the place where we would like to put them on, and so that they can be easily accessible. And now it is true, it's not always that there's a difference between the islands and the mainland. So some obviously of the also mainland solutions can be workable in the island context, and those for those we have indeed 2 other initiatives. The Covenant of Mayors I already mentioned. It's eumayors.org, if I remember correctly, where you can find that, or on our EU website. And then there is another thing called the Climate Neutral and Smart Cities Mission, which is a new kid in the block when it comes to these climate and energy initiatives, a very ambitious one for 2030, climate neutrality by 2030 for 112 cities around in Europe and a little bit beyond as well. So there we are. There's another platform which is developed there as well, where we put all kinds of information about financial concepts and many other stakeholder related solutions. So these are like 3 places where I would recommend to go to, and also they are for connecting with other island or mainland stakeholders. So it's actually a place to connect and find out more.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of the organization, I'd like to thank you, panelists and speakers, from the bottom of my heart. I heard many new things. Unfortunately, we have to close this now, but personally, I hope to meet you soon again somewhere in the island networks. And it was really a pleasure to moderate this session. I would like to thank the audience, of course, as well, also for the many pop-ups that we have now in the Q&A and in the chat. And we all have our advantage from that. So thanks a lot, and back to you, Adi.
Thank you so much, Hans. Listen, guys, this session was amazing. I could tell that it sparked an energy in the audience. There were so many questions, and I really, really loved hearing about all the new projects from the panelists. It was awesome. Thank you again. And especially for those attending, thank you so much for participating. I would love if you could leave some feedback in the chat. I just want to make a quick announcement for the Global Sustainable Island Summit being held from May 22nd to 23rd. It's an in-person conference being organized by Island Innovation and co-hosted by the government of the Prince Edward Islands, Canada. We'll be gathering professionals, researchers, policymakers, and a bunch of industry leaders to discuss and explore innovative solutions and advancements in the sustainable industry. So you can get your tickets, early bird tickets are available. Link is in the chat. And again, thank you so much, panelists, keynote speaker, Hans, for the moderating. It was great. And I hope to meet you all again soon.